In today's episode, we look at a very controversial legal case that involved the first and only legal hanging in Ashe County. Occurring in 1907, it's centered around Will Banks, an African-American son of slaves who was married and had several children. Because jobs were scarce in Ashe County, Will frequently traveled to West Virginia to work in the coal mines, where he earned $5 a month. After 2 or 3 months, he would return to Ashe County and stay with his family for a few weeks before repeating the cycle and returning to West Virginia. On one trip home, he was approached by a young nephew, Oni McMillan, who wanted to accompany him when Will returned to West Virginia in hopes of also getting a mining job. Will consented, and that is where this terrible tale begins.
Of course, Will had been working. He'd come back, and his nephew, his name was Oni McMillan. His father was Frank, the one that ended up getting shot. Oni begged Frank, his dad, to let him go with Will and work in the mine. He wanted to make some money. He was 15 years old. They didn't have the money for his fare, so Will said he would loan it to him, but he would have to pay it back. He loaned Oni $4.95, pretty much a month's wages. Will come in from work one day. Oni got missing out of the mine. Will came in, he had some sort of a little shanty because it said he had to remove a staple out of the door just to get into where he was staying. He had nailed it shut when he left, but it was open. Will's hat was gone, some other personal belongings, and Will had 50 cents left there, and it was gone. He ran to the train station and asked about a young black male getting on, and he did, and so he was headed back home. Will stayed and worked, and in about a week he got a letter from his Uncle Frank asking him why that he treated Oni so bad. Oni had obviously told him some things that was not true, and because he knew he owed him that money and there was no way he could come up with a month's wages.
Will continued to work in West Virginia, but on his next trip home, he tried to get back the money that he claimed Oni owed him. Despite several confrontations and arguments over the course of many months, Will was unsuccessful. Things finally came to a head, however, on May 6, 1905, during a revival at Cox's Grove Church.
That particular day, Will was in church, and Will always carried a pistol in his jacket pocket. And another uncle, his name was Maxwell, his last name was Maxwell, came into church and told Will that Frank and Oni was outside and wanted to talk to him. So Will goes outside the church, and Frank's standing there in the churchyard with a shotgun over his shoulder. And Oni starts throwing words at Will, and he makes Will mad, and Will walks up and slaps Oni. Frank says, no man will slap my child without my permission. And he took the shotgun off his shoulder, and Oni and Frank both grabbed Will, took him to the ground, and Will pulled his pistol, emptied it. He shot 5 times. Will feared for his life, as he did when he defended himself. He immediately jumped up and started running, and that was his decision to leave the area and also leave the county. He did not stop till he got to the Canadian border. He made a fatal mistake of sending a wire home, and his wire simply stated, "Is he dead?" His wife sent a wire back replying, "He's dead, keep running." He put that wire in his pocket. When he crossed the border, he got searched, and they found the note.
And they telegraphed back to Ashe County and said, "We have this fellow that we're wondering about, and is he somebody you know, and do you want him back?" And the sheriff, who at that time was Ambrose Clark, wired back and said, "Yeah," he says, "I'll come and get him." So he went up and met Will and said, "Will, you got to go home and face this." And Will said, "Well, it's self-defense." And Sheriff Clark's told him, "Well, if it's self-defense, you'll probably get some time or something, but it won't be too bad, and you just serve your time and be done with it." And so Will agreed to come back peaceably, and they came back to Ashe County. But when Sheriff Clark got back and looked around and took the temperature of the situation, he realized that he had brought this young man back into what was essentially a kangaroo court, and that he was not going to get a fair trial. And Sheriff Clark took his badge off and threw it on the table, and he says, "I didn't sign up for no lynching."
We had a problem after he was charged here in this courtroom that we're in today. The judge had previously, the day before, had went down and toured the jail, and in the court proceedings, the jail was shown to be unfit to house him. So they took him from here to Statesville and kept him down there in jail.
During the time he was up here, he was held in what was essentially a bullpen. As I understand it, the old jail that was here in 1907, the jailer and his wife lived downstairs. That was their home. And they cooked and took care of the prisoners who were in what was essentially a tiger cage upstairs that you could walk all the way around.
You know, with what I've read and the evidence that I've read, you know, I feel like that it was he was justified in what he was doing. I think he feared for his life, and I believe that it was self-defense. However, there were 5 witnesses, and they were at the church that they all spoke against him. Now, that too meant that Frank McMillan, the one that was shot, was Will's uncle, so they were all family. So that McMillan family may have influenced those witnesses in some manner, but that was kind of strange that there would no one speak up for Will. Of course, after the final court case, there was an appeal, and which did not prove any good, and so I think it was about a week before the execution date was set, they brought him up here. The day he died was, the day he hung was August the 22nd, 1907, and it was on a Thursday. Bell on this courthouse steps rang at 9 o'clock in the morning, and that's when they were supposedly to start getting everything ready. The sheriff had asked, well, maybe he didn't ask, he told every community that they had to furnish 2 people to be on the gallows when he was hung. And one other big problem they had, and nobody knew how to tie a noose. They had to send the rope to Bristol, Virginia, and get the noose tied to bring it back. You can look at the picture and tell that it was a very hot day because every other person was carrying an umbrella to keep the sun away. I do understand it was kind of a carnival type atmosphere also. There was people selling even popcorn and stuff because it was an all-day event. It started at 9, and he was allowed standing on the gallows at 1:30 is when he started giving his speech. So it lasted that long.
To me, the most interesting part of it is the fact that he was allowed to address the crowd. He was tried here in this courthouse, and he was executed right down the street on Academy Street. They built a purpose-built structure for the gallows down there. When he was marched out to be executed, they asked him if he had any last words, and he said, "Yeah, I got a few." And so he spent about, according to the newspaper account, he spent about 45 minutes talking to the crowd and giving them his side of the story. And a good portion of that has been preserved because there was a reporter there from the Jefferson Recorder, which was the newspaper of the time, and he took down a big part of this speech. And to judge by what he recorded, Will Banks was a very intelligent and well-spoken, articulate young man. I've seen at least one personal account that said that Will's wife rode in the wagon with his coffin after the hanging to take him to this place of burial.
If it was tried today, it would not turn out that way. I really don't feel like it would. It was self-defense.
I've talked to a number of people who have told me that the word in their family over the years was that they thought that Will was innocent, or if not innocent, at least guilty of something far less than first-degree murder. They believed his account of his fear for his life and of firing in self-defense.
Was Will guilty of the crime that he was convicted of? Many people think that he was not, but there's no way to truly know. The prosecution's records mysteriously disappeared sometime in the mid-20th century.